minds, calm our body down, settle into our seat. Kind of make sure our spine is straight. Perhaps do a few shoulder shrugs so your shoulders can relax. Depends on how long you've been awake if you need to do that. So, and lower your gaze so your eyes are gently open or gently closed. And take a few deep breaths. And then just take a second to check in with your body. How's it doing? And observe your thoughts for a moment. How's your mind? Remember the reason you showed up this morning. So that decision's been made, you've showed up. So now you can just relax, knowing that this is all you have to do. All the other things that pop in the mind can be addressed later. So try to generate a positive motivation. Something like you showed up to meditate, to take care of your own well-being or peace of mind, and not just for yourself, but by taking care of the self, taking care of your mind. There'll be benefits to others around you. Now find the sensation of your breath going in and out of the body, either at the tip of your nose, or as your belly rises and falls. To settle your mind, you might do the 9-round breathing, or you can just simply count your breaths. Count each inhale and exhale as a pair. And just try to count to 10, focusing on your breathing. And when you reach 10, just begin again at 1. And any time that you're distracted, just begin again at 1. It's not important how many breaths you count. It's just important to remember to let your attention fall onto that sensation of the breath going in and out. We're developing our skill at concentration and following the breath is useful at any time as it settles the mind. Now check in with your body again, making sure that you're sitting upright, the spine straight, the chest open. Your hands comfortably in your lap. So now we're going to reflect on the obstacle to contentment. So the obstacle to contentment is desire. When we're told this, that the way to contentment is to let go of desire, we feel as if we're being asked to sacrifice our happiness, that without desire, there's no possibility of happiness, and we're left with nothing, just ourselves, completely deprived, like a deflated balloon. We feel as if we no longer have a heart, as if we've lost the meaning of our lives. So check up. How does your mind react to this thought that the way to contentment is to let go of desire? The Buddha said that we hold on to desire because we have not recognized that its nature is suffering. Desire itself is a mind of suffering. Because of our attachment to getting what we like, we feel elated when we meet the four desirable objects: pleasure, gain, praise, a good reputation. And we mistake this elation for happiness. We fail to see that meeting these objects brings no calmness or peace in our heart. Instead, chasing these objects, we experience constant mood swings and instability. Even though we might have more than enough material possessions, clothes, money, and so forth to last our whole life, we still feel we don't have enough. We still crave more. But following desire doesn't fill the hole in the heart. There's never an end. Desire is by nature hungry. It can never be satiated. Really check up on this. Is there anything that you've met with had lasting satisfaction? When our mind is overcome with desire, not only is the reality of the object obscured, but we're also unable to see the shortcomings of desire itself. Think of a compliment or some praise that you've recently received, whether you feel you deserved it or not. Just try to remember the way your mind reacted to it. Perhaps somebody has praised your wisdom. You are so smart. Check how your mind likes to hear about that. You are so smart. Immediately your mind wraps around this sentence and you feel very happy. And the sense of I is inflated. But where is the real happiness in those four words? They are just sounds hitting your ears. Try to take each word and see whether there is happiness there. Is there some inherent happiness in the word so, or in smart, in you, or in are? And is anyone you know smart all the time? Reflect on how the mind responds to hearing pleasing sounds, particularly pleasing sounds about us. You are so smart. And what happens when someone says, you get this wrong every single time? You get angry and upset. Maybe you even say it to yourself. The actual sentence can bring pain to your heart. The sense of I is deflated. But again, it's really only a group of sounds hitting your ear. There is no you. There is no anyone that is wrong every single time. The words themselves are empty sounds. The meaning comes from your own mind. When we check like this, the wrong conception that held the truth to be in that word of sounds, that group of sounds, just vanishes. And with it, the attachment or aversion also vanishes. Something that is only suffering in nature appears to us as happiness. Something that is impermanent appears as permanent. Something that is impure appears as pure. Something that is not truly existent appears as truly existent. And while we're clinging to these appearances, enjoying these objects with desire, they look good, but sooner or later they will cheat us. The final result of our relationship with them is only suffering. This isn't a problem in the object. It's a problem with our state of mind. We can train our minds to feel equal about whatever object we experience so that it cannot disturb our mind. We have to practice this. We can start by practicing in our imagination, picturing meeting an object of aversion, and our mind not responding with reactivity. Just awareness of what is. Worlds filled with gold and diamonds can't bring us real peace. But destroying distorted, mistaken attitudes about desire can. We can develop an equilibrium towards comfort and discomfort, towards a good or bad reputation, towards praise and criticism, and gain and loss. We can develop confidence in our inner wisdom and instead of putting faith in the outer conditions, expecting happiness to be a result of our outer conditions, instead of expecting contentment as a result of outer conditions. We can discover that these things arise in the mind due to inner conditions. And in this way, we can develop a stable mind, our heart can be filled with peace, satisfaction, and happiness. Even if the only drink we ever have is water, we'll be totally satisfied. And having made this effort to think about desire in a different way, we can rejoice in our efforts and we can wish whatever benefits that may result from them benefit all sentient beings until there's no sentient being suffering at all. Now take a moment to scan your body again. Checking for any spots of tension, lethargy. Use your breath to relax tension or awaken the body. And check in with your mind. And just gently, when you're ready, open your eyes, stretch. Ooh. Any thoughts? No thoughts? Any non-thoughts?
I thought it was funny, just like if there's no desire, you're content. It's like so obvious. It's like ridiculous, but it never occurs to me.
No, we have to train ourselves, we practice the habit of chasing desire always. It was like always. So, because we think that it will lead us to happiness. So we just need to check up.
I was thinking I experience my desire more often than when I have dissatisfaction. Like if I'm experiencing dissatisfaction, then that's when it seems my desire arises to change something to remove that sort of negative feeling of dissatisfaction.
Yeah, and I think if you check, you'll discover that's going on with things you like. You just don't want it to change. So the desire comes from clinging to it to not change. So when it changes, then you're aware of the desire to get it back. So they're all, because an aversion or dissatisfaction is attachment. Aversion's just attachment to not having what you don't like.
True. So I'm thinking of the 8 mundane pursuits.
Yeah.
Those are
it's all about the 8 worldly concerns. Yes. Yeah, exactly. It's terrible to be reduced to 8 things, isn't it?
Each of those is just a node from which multiple threads are attached.
It's really funny. Okay, so let's refresh our motivation for the class. Really hoping that our efforts to work on our minds, will lead us to being, in a better place with our minds, mentally in a better place. And from that space, our actions of speech and body will have a better starting point. Since everything starts with this mind, it's nice to have a peaceful or thoughtful or wisdom mind to come from, as opposed to an agitated or craving mind or grasping mind or, greedy mind, so it's, and it, it's, a lot of that arises from our desire, that we're just, not satisfied in this moment. And so we're seeking something else. And that seeking by itself is a agitation. So let's recite the 4 immeasurables for others. Of course, we're one of the suffering sentient beings that it's talking about. So we're, feel free to include ourselves because it's fine to wish for ourselves happiness and freedom from suffering. There's nothing wrong with that, So it's just that we want to remember as often as we can that we're connected to all living beings, so it's, and we're all the same in wanting happiness and not wanting suffering. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. And may all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. I'm admitting people from the waiting room. So every now and then I just have to, I notice, I need to click that. All right. So what is the difference, for those of you who are just meditating and thinking about this, what is the difference between desire and enjoying an object of desire?
Enjoying an object of desire would mean that you are okay when it ends, when it goes away. You're not clinging, you don't want it to last forever.
Well, it's not about want, really. It's just that when it ends, and your mind is not disturbed by it. It's exactly what you were saying in the beginning. It's just that when it comes to an end, you're okay. The mind is not disturbed. And that is a really key piece, because if we keep mistaking enjoyment for desire, we'll think we have to give up all enjoyments. And that's not the purpose. That will not lead to contentment. Contentment is more of a state of mind that is unshaken terribly or at all by whatever is arising in our external conditions or our physical conditions or even our mental conditions. So if we wake up in the morning and we're feeling kind of low or just kind of grumpy, we don't hold that as some kind of truth. We know it's just an impermanent moment of mind. And that if we don't feed it with anything that supports that grumpiness, we're allowing it to pass. If we have the expectation that we should always wake up with a peaceful mind, then that's a desire. We're setting ourselves up with that desire. So if we wake up and discover our mood is disappointing, the fact that we even think of it as disappointing is a sign, that we're attached to something being different. And then when we go into the kitchen to make our cup of tea or cup of coffee or get a glass of water or whatever it is, and it's not there. Like say you forgot to fill your filtering pitcher or something, you know. I keep cold water in my refrigerator. I don't have any ice, so I just keep my pitcher of water in the refrigerator so I have cool water to drink. And so if I forgot, I don't have any cool water to drink. And so contentment is okay with that. No big deal. It's just what is in this moment. It is not permanent. It's just the state of now. Now, does that mean we shouldn't, you know, like when that happens to me, I shouldn't fill my water pitcher? Are you thinking, why is she talking about water pitchers? You have to unmute yourself for me to hear an answer.
No.
No. I don't know who said it, but thank you. So, but why not? Arlene?
Well, the fact that you didn't do something shouldn't remain with you. It's just a fleeting thing. And it's not something that should impact how you feel internally and inside. The contentment shouldn't be disturbed because something wasn't done.
Right. And then also, liking to have cold water isn't a problem. So if I can fix that by filling my pitcher so I have cold water later, there's nothing wrong with that. Where does the problem come in?
I think the problem exists when you aren't forgiving of yourself and you make something much more out of this than it's a minor issue. It's not important. If you had no water and there was no water to be had, that is something that is a whole different issue. But the fact,
however, even if there's no water, does it have to disturb the mind? I mean, I find it, it can be quite difficult to imagine it not disturbing the mind.
right?
But does it have to?
No, it does not have to. If you're at a point where that contentment is so magnificent, that's the word I would use, that you would not, nothing would interfere with your contentment level.
Right. Thank you, Arlene. So is that just trying to, is that a sort of form of craziness? Oh, we'll just pretend everything's all right. So we just need, it isn't that. That's not what we're trying to achieve. It's that we're trying to be able to be aware of what's happening and not let it disturb our mind, but take, if there are steps we need to take to remedy the situation, then we proceed with remedying the situation. Steve, did you have a thought? You're unmuted, so just checking.
No, I'm good.
Okay. Francesca.
Hi. Yes. So the other day, I lost some jewelry because I hid it. I put it somewhere and I didn't write down where I put it. But then I had all these things in my head thinking, maybe somebody stole whatever. But it took me a minute to just say to myself, if it's gone, it's gone. It's okay. And, that was a little difficult, but I knew that this piece of jewelry was not going to be my ultimate happiness, you know, and if it was gone, I had to let it go, you know, but it took a second to use my mind to, you know, have those, that thought of saying, you know what, this is not ultimate happiness, this jewelry, this is not.
It's not even temporary happiness.
Temporary.
That's what we want to understand. You know, that actually happiness is not in the object at all.
Right.
So, and of course it would take a minute because we're having to retrain our minds.
Right.
You know, because we really believe that these objects we have that delight us are the source of that delight. When it's really, you know, that we practice the habit, or it's a result of good karma, I don't know, but of liking shiny, sparkly, colorful things. You know, or maybe they're sleek and elegant, it's, you know. But whatever it is, you know, the point is, whether it's there or not, whether it's available or not, does not have to be the condition for our contentment. And that takes a little practice. First of all, it takes checking up on how often we are assuming that. You know, where we're going through our day having this discomfort all the time because, you know, things aren't going according to plan, which we didn't even know we had, you know. We need to understand that the problem isn't the day not going as we planned. It's the problem is in the way we're thinking. And so that we have to use our inner wisdom to interrupt the distorted way of thinking, you know, to put some wisdom in the situation and to really understand that not being jarred, whether it's in something that we like to experience, like when we feel elated, you know, and that, you know, when we feel disappointed, that those, it doesn't matter which end of the continuum it's on, whether we can see it as pleasurable or painful, we want to understand that how we respond in our mind is the key piece. You know, if you know, I don't know what, you know, like say there's been something going wrong every morning for a while, and then one morning it doesn't go wrong, we think, finally. That shows we've been clinging to this external event as something that is your source of happiness. So we want to recognize these things, these habits, so we can see how it actually disturbs us. You know, to investigate what the Buddha is saying, if you want to be content, have few desires. And being content does not mean not enjoying things we like, not enjoying people we like, only hanging out with things that disturb us. You know, it doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean that things that, you know, that somehow we should have nothing that we find disturbing. That's a goal. But the main point is training ourselves to realize that the external event doesn't have to be disturbing. It can be a condition that we recognize something needs changing. Sometimes it's just our mind that needs changing. But sometimes we need to do something like fill our pitcher of water. So when we're practicing with the small stuff, the stuff that we, you know, that is the foundation of being able to understand it in the big stuff, like when there's no water. And have we all experienced no water?
Yes.
You know, I've experienced it with a hurricane. You know,
When I was in the hospital, I couldn't drink water. It was the worst. They wouldn't let me drink water because they were prepping me for surgery every day. It was horrible. It was so terrible.
and it's terrible because our body needs water, right? And that's a result of samsara, of being stuck in cyclic existence. So we have a body that needs things. It needs fuel, it needs water. And those things are true. It's true. But whether or not we grasp at this body is going to determine the degree to which we suffer when the conditions of the body are not being met.
So that made me think of, you had once said about how Lama Zopa used to laugh when the food would dribble out of his mouth because of a stroke. That's hilarious.
Yeah, it's pretty priceless. But this is where your mind can go if we keep working with correcting these misconceptions we have about what is satisfaction, what is contentment, what are we grasping after that makes us, you know, dissatisfied so much of the time, or makes us just be on this roller coaster going from, you know, ooh, this is nice, ooh, this isn't so nice, ooh, this is nice, ooh, this isn't so nice. And interestingly enough, it isn't that we land on the side of, you know, boring. Like Rinpoche illustrates, you can just land on the side of finding everything, you know, either a good condition for laughter. You know, it's like Paul was saying at the beginning, you know, sometimes we look at our minds and we go, oh my goodness, it is ridiculous how I hold that thought. You know, we're very amusing. And the more we work on understanding how distorted our thoughts are and start to see how we really can change that, the more amusing it is, as opposed to distressing.
Venerable Tendron, so when you're saying grasping at our body, to not grasp at our body, you mean as in whatever our body's needs are at that time, we just don't put so much significance to it? Or...
We don't make it our happiness or suffering. You know, it's like when we're hungry and then we go to the refrigerator.
Yeah.
And there's food in the refrigerator. We just don't like any of it. You know, but we're hungry, so we need to eat. So we pick something and eat it. And we don't decide that we're suffering, because it's not something we would have picked if we were at the grocery store or at a restaurant. It's understanding that grasping at this external thing, our body, as a source of happiness or suffering, is forgetting that happiness and suffering are mental states of mind. Have you ever tried, has anyone ever tried to train for some sport? Did the body suffer at all?
Yes.
Is that a problem?
Not really.
Yeah, because of the context, right? So this is what we need to recognize, that our motivation is what's determining whether we see it as a problem or not. You know, it's like I hate the dentist, right? Ugh. But if I have a really bad toothache, I'm going to go to the dentist anyway, because it's a matter of degree, right? Yes, Joy. You're muted. Whoops, where'd she go?
Here I am. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So I don't think that all desires are negative, because, okay, I desire to have red hair. Okay. And I mean, I can get my mind to say it's not important. So I'm trying to figure out what desires are not necessary.
It's not a problem to like having red hair.
Mm-hmm.
The problem comes in if we meet obstacles to having that and we get disturbed by it. That's when we're creating our own suffering. Liking to have red hair, liking cheesecake, liking, you know, certain kinds of movies, liking certain kinds of music, none of that is the problem.
Mm-hmm.
We can recognize it's our mental attitude about it is the difficulty when we are thwarted from getting those things that we like. Does that make sense?
Kind of.
I mean, so like you go to the store and you're trying to buy your red hair dye, you know, and it's not there. And in fact, the manufacturers quit making that particular shade. And so you're going to have to start again. You're going to have to find another company or another product or another color. And it's, you know, and if that really super disturbs your mind, or even, you know, I mean, it's one thing to just kind of go, oh, okay. But then to grab hold of it, like, that's not right. You know, sort of like, how dare they change their product line without telling me? You know, they're taken away by happiness. That is a distorted state of mind. You are choosing suffering over acceptance of what is in that moment.
But I think I also heard you say, I was hearing that most desires, we shouldn't have desires.
Well, that's what I'm just saying. I'm reaffirming that.
Okay.
It is the desire mind, not the dislike mind. That's the problem. It's the mind that says, you know, I have to have it like this. Not the mind that says, ooh, I don't like this. That's not a problem. That's just acknowledging what is. It's when we go the next step and get disturbed by what is. That's when we're adding our mental suffering to the event. We're choosing that. We don't realize it's a choice because we're so habituated to it, because we really believe changing what's external to us, or even changing our body, is the solution to being happy or content. And the Buddha is saying that's actually mistaken. So it's not a problem to like something. Our pleasures, our enjoyment of things is the ripening of our positive past actions. So we can be happy that we have something to enjoy because it reflects past positive actions. But clinging to it, thinking that it should be permanent, is a way to set ourselves up to suffer. It's a mental attitude. So the kinds of desires they say are not afflicted are the desire to be free from suffering, the desire to become enlightened for the benefit of others. But if you really look at the way those, you know, what that means is it is still an affliction if we think we cannot deal with not being enlightened now. Our resistance to accepting what is in this moment is often a condition for subsequent suffering. So when we're trying to cultivate contentment, you know, it's like at the first sign of discontent, the first sign of it, you know, the first sign of craving something to be different, we want to step back and go, okay, it's my response to this condition that's causing me agitation. So how can I work with this? Like I have a tendency towards laziness, you know? So one of the things that I have to recognize is that when there's a condition I don't like, but is, you know, that I can fix, it is my attachment that I have to do anything. I don't, oh, I mean, I have to do something like go to the store and buy some more whatever, you know. I mean, this is about, you know, we're trying to get really observant about what's going on in our mind so that we can reduce our suffering. Because when we really check up, we'll realize I'm twisting myself into knots here because there's something in it that I don't want. Aversion's arisen. And when we look really deeply, it's not the thing out there. It's our reaction to the thing out there. Because what's out there is the ripening of some karma. And it's just what is. Doesn't mean we don't take steps to remedy it when we can. But if you're like me, then there's a part of, you know, I begrudge the fact that I have to do something. I know I'm making myself sound like such a wonderful person, but you know, hey, I look at my mind and it's not very attractive. But that's why a sense of humor helps, because it's sort of like, oh, I know what this is. I just don't want to have to go out and get something. Well, if you don't want to go out and get something, maybe you'll want to just be content without it. You know? Or you could be content with needing to go out and get it. I mean, it's really a mind game we play with ourselves with deep consequences. Because there's nothing wrong with either choice. Oh, I have to go get it if I don't have it. That's a choice. Oh, I'll go get it. Or the choice is, I'll do without today. And you don't go get it. It's not the choice that matters. It's our attitude about it that causes our suffering. But I don't want to have to go out, but I have to have it because, you know, life would be so much better if I had it. Is this making any sense, or I'm talking dribble?
No, it makes sense. And thank you, because I'm also having trouble with laziness myself, so it helps.
I'm well practiced in the art of procrastination. Does it have any benefit? No, I suffer because of it. It's a state of mind that is suffering. Because when we procrastinate, we know what we need to do. I mean, you know, we're not procrastinating if we don't need to do it. But so that mind that's resisting needing to do it, however we phrase it, is a mind of suffering. If we've decided that we have to do it, procrastinating doesn't help. It adds to the suffering. So now we have something we don't like to do, plus the mind that suffers because we're going to do it anyway. But we're not going to do it today because we're going to put it off and suffer all from now until I finally do it. And this is really what's behind so much of our suffering, not necessarily laziness, but just this way we talk ourselves into suffering more, as opposed to just accepting what is in this moment and knowing that it will change. And holding on to, but it should be right now. That craving for things to be correct now. It's the craving mind that is the suffering. Because there's nothing wrong with recognizing change needs to occur. You know, we have a load of dirty clothes, they have to be washed. You know, that's not a problem. That's just the way, you know, we think we're clean, but we're not. So we need to wash our clothes. We need to wash our sheets. We need to wash our towels. But if we sit there going, oh, I can't believe I have spilled something on, you know, like, you know, you're not as lucky as I am because I can usually flip my robes around and cover up whatever I've spilled on it, you know. So, which is good because it's quite a distance from here to get my robes if I need a new set. So, but this, you know, this response of thinking, you know, oh, I should never spill anything on my clothes is idiotic. If we really look at it, it's just kind of like there's no wisdom in that sentence because it's not based on reality at all. The good news, though, is apparently in Pure Lands, you know, your fabrics don't stain. So. I'm just making a joke here.
Venerable Tendron, I find the desire of doing to be difficult, or not doing. You know, like the to-do list, or or just making more time for myself. Well, this is something I've been working on, just allowing myself to relax, you know.
So what's the suffering that's arising?
I guess my lack of skill to do it faster or better, or
You haven't set your up for any expectations, have you? But sometimes when we just say it out loud, it becomes really clear what our obstacles are.
yes.
You know, so you might want to consider putting it on your to-do list. Giving it legitimacy in your eyes. If you have the habit of writing to-do list and what's on the to-do list is more important than anything else, then add putting self-care on it. Use what your attitude is until you change your attitude to be a benefit as opposed to be an obstacle. So recognizing that you put some importance to the to-do list and you don't put importance to self-care, then put your self-care on your to-do list. Because this is about training the mind. So it's, you know, we have to, you know, develop things with, you know, start where we are. You know, one day you may not really see the to-do list as the really, this is what's meaningful in my life list. You know, you'll have internalized those things. And your to-do list will just be made up of things not to forget to do.
Right. It's like the self-care things. I try to just, they're already part of the schedule. So I do just do them now. But yes, I agree. That's a good, helpful hint to just add them to the list too. So thank you.
Yeah, I mean, so this is the thing. And it takes a while for us to be comfortable with change. And even those things that benefit us. You know? So we have to just start with understanding that we have this reaction to change that we find uncomfortable. So we have to tolerate that discomfort if we've decided that the change is in our best interest or in the best interest of others. You know, so we need to be able to tolerate that change. If you're accustomed to always giving in to all your cravings, then not giving in to one is going to not feel good. But it's the mind that doesn't feel good. It's not the body. It's the mind. I have to have it. Even physiological cravings are temporary. Our body doesn't maintain it constantly. Even like, it's just so funny because we're, when your camera's on, which I appreciate because it makes me not feel like I'm teaching a computer. So I really do appreciate your faces, but I do get amused sometimes about what I see. My joy. So, so be mindful you're on camera. So one of the, skills we need to develop when we're observing ourselves, observing our mind, is a certain gentleness with what we observe. It's in our best interest and the best interest of everybody in our lives to be aware of how we think. And what motivates us to speak and what motivates us to act. We really want to check these things so that we can make choices about what to do and what to say. And maybe the way we're thinking is not helping us. But if we observe with a constant judgmental attitude, we won't want to continue observing. Yes, Jack?
Is it always good to be gentle with disturbing emotions?
It's never good to be gentle with disturbing emotions. It's good to be gentle with you. We are not our disturbing emotions. So we don't want to give our judgmental disturbing emotions. We don't want to feed that. We have to instead, when we're observing and we see something that kind of makes us feel icky, whatever your version of that is. I can get this chill just going, oh God, I can't believe it. Actually I can believe it. And that makes it even more icky. But but recognize that this is good. I feed it with messages that are saying, oh, good. Now okay, this is something I really want to work with. I'm glad I'm aware of it. I have, and I was, that's not who I am. That's not my nature. It's a habit manifesting and it's not a skillful habit. So what can I do to counter it? You know, and often it's going to be patience with ourselves, patience with the discomfort of recognizing this. Patience that is confident in the teachings that say this can be changed, and this is how to change it. You know, and patient without wanting to blame something external to me. It's not my fault that I have this attitude or habit or motivation or whatever it is I've discovered. It's their fault. You know. But with the, you know, so we don't want to keep feeding our judgmental mind. It will be, because it's counterproductive when we're trying to observe what's going on in our mind so that we can bring our wisdom to that and go, oh, that's not a very skillful thing. That attitude, that habit. So being able to observe, because, you know, we just won't keep doing it if every time we do it, we get very, you know, down on ourselves. You know, I mean, we might keep doing it, but we keep coming up with this false impression. We keep, you know, feeding our grasping at a permanent nature. Yes, did someone talk? So we really want to witness without throwing arrows at ourselves. You know, it's like, oh, so that's what I'm really thinking here. That's what I really want. Ooh, that's not nice. And then we stab ourselves with our judgmental mind. Ooh, what a nasty, evil person I am. Or lazy. What a lazy person you are. You know. We don't, you know, that's not going to be skillful either. Is this making sense? So what can we do instead?
Try to find the antidote, or learn the antidote for a disturbing emotion and apply it.
Yes, that's certainly one thing we can do. And we can also, and when we do that, when we think, okay, one of them, you know, it's not like we have to start from scratch most of the time, you know, it's like we, you know, kind of realize, oh, you know, that wasn't kind, you know, whatever I just said, oh, that wasn't kind. And then you kind of think, what was underneath that? And then you realize, oh, you know, that I was feeling jealous or something. So, you know, I had to even the playing field again. So, you know, whatever unattractive, you know, habit of mind you realize is behind it, you know, and then you kind of go, oh, okay. So retaliation is just another condition to create suffering. So we just kind of recognize, oh, that doesn't, you know, that's not necessary. So here I'm already feeling, you know, inferior. I mean, that's what jealousy is, right? Oh, I don't have something that I wish I had. And I got even by trying to knock someone else off there, you know, the pedestal I put them on. We have wisdom and reasoning that can look at it if we're doing it gently and not doing it judgmentally, where we're thinking, yeah, but they're, you know, look at them. You know, they're trying to make me feel bad by what they said. So we're blaming them for our unkind speech. Even though we've just experienced, if we're using that as the reason, then, you know, we already know what it feels like to have unkind speech. So why would we want to use it back? That's not going to, you know, so we use our wisdom. Oh, well, I can just make this, you know, worse and worse and worse. or I can walk away, or I can apologize for my unkind words. And if it's someone we actually are close to, we might be able to say, I was jealous, and admit it. What's the antidote to jealousy?
I would say if you can be happy for somebody else's happiness.
Exactly. Rejoicing is the antidote to jealousy. Really trying from as one of the things is this recognition that there's enough joy to go around. It's a non-physical mental state. By being joyful for someone else's good fortune or good qualities or good whatever is not going to deprive us of anything. Except for the suffering that arises by being jealous. And then we might use our wisdom to reflect on what is jealousy telling, what is the, when jealousy arises, what am I telling myself? So you ask questions to find out, am I telling myself I'm not good enough because I am not that? Am I telling myself I failed because I wasn't rewarded in that way? Whatever the context is, we need to challenge it with our reasoning and see where we're distorted. So it's like, say you're going for a promotion at work and you don't get it, someone else gets it. Rejoicing for them, their success at getting the promotion they wanted, isn't going to change anything about your situation, except that you will not be suffering in that moment of rejoicing for them. Now, whether or not you decide that there's no room for advancement in this company, so I'm going to start looking for another job, again, doesn't have to be a condition for suffering. It can just be a decision that has arisen out of wisdom. Is this making sense? So these are the kinds of ways we have to explore. We observe something, and when we have time, whether it's then or at a later time, we really reflect on the state of mind that arose that was causing, and we can do it the other way around too. Like when we're, say we get the promotion and we're ecstatic. How long will that last? We have to understand that feeling of ecstasy over getting the promotion is a distortion. What's a distortion of?
Of how much happiness it's bringing us?
Yeah, or how much happiness it will bring us, or if it brings us any happiness at all, except it's an internal thing, isn't it? The ecstatic reaction reflects an attitude that we have about the event. Is it distorted?
So is it helpful to just realize that whatever feelings we have is temporary? That helps, right? To manage a distortion?
Yes. And then also understanding that if our response indicates ourself, how we hold ourselves, You know, so people who feel like success is determined by their job title or by their income or by the, you know, whatever. I mean, we had to uncover these things because if we're holding that to be true, then we're setting ourselves up for suffering when it doesn't happen. Instead of recognizing that we have imbued the promotion with some meaningfulness that's distorted. You know, we're kind of like, you know, thinking that if we really feel that our happiness is tied, or our success is tied, or our self-worth is tied to this event, to the job title or whatever, then when we lose that job, or they, you know, restructure the company and that job title doesn't exist, what happens to our sense of self? It completely crashes and burns because
People,
we've
like,
held.
kill them.
I'm sorry, Paul.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I thought you were asking, but I was like, people like kill themselves over that.
Yes, there have been chefs that have killed themselves over losing a Michelin star. You know, we need to understand that's because it's a misunderstanding about how we exist. We think that, oh, I'm a celebrated chef. That's who I am. Or I'm president or CEO or whatever they call people now these days, you know, of this, you know, huge company, blah, blah, blah. And then, you know, the pandemic arises and, you know, you go bankrupt. And you're CEO of that company that went bankrupt. Even though it's not through any fault of your own, you know. So it's really, we need to understand that this is a way in which we create our own suffering because we're imbuing external things with qualities they cannot possess.
Venerable Tendron?
Yes, Lamo.
Would you say that many of these things, well, they happen from the mind, is that we have a lot of expectations. So when you were talking about jealousy, I was thinking in my mind to rejoice for somebody else's, you were describing a job. Maybe what that meant that the person, they were expecting to get the job and someone else did, therefore the jealousy arises.
Right.
Had a huge expectation, you know, maybe because they were next in line or they worked there.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter the reason.
Yeah, do you think it doesn't matter the reason? Is that what you said?
No, I mean, the expectation is grasping.
Well,
We're imbuing something,
okay.
you know, that hasn't happened yet. My happiness will exist when I get this promotion.
Okay.
If someone else gets it, I'm going to be jealous. Whereas that doesn't have, neither one of those states has to arise. It's a choice. Mostly it's a choice out from, you know, it's a choice when we learn how to observe it and start changing our choices. Right now, it's because we're out of control due to our habit. Arlene, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yes, I was going to say, I think it's an interesting discussion because the society in which we live today here in this country is based on all of the things that we are discussing that lead to suffering.
Yeah.
Because we are surrounded by messages of accomplishment, possession, and to achieve the mindset that we're discussing today takes tremendous, first of all, awareness, and then tremendous amount of really working on oneself to be able to get to that point where happiness is something that's within you. It's not anything that has to do with anything about you, other than possibly, you know, family. And there are certain things that
even
do
that.
give.
Even that.
Right.
So this is the thing. Yes, Arlene. I mean, so the Buddha would say, we live in this culture because we created the cause for it, and we created the cause for it from our habits. So now the culture we live in reflects those habits. That's why we're here. You know, the good news is that a lot of this also is the result of positive action. We have resources, we have, you know, comes, you know, blah, blah, blah. You know, so it's not like, we have time, we have leisure time to be able to think about these things, as opposed to people who are born in areas where all they can think about is how to survive, period. You know, the body surviving. So this is, you know, but we need to recognize is now we've imbued the trappings of, you know, oh, I don't have to just have survival, you know, now, you know, I can have all the, you know, I don't know, the trappings of life. So we need to understand that when we're putting our, you know, it's like Lama said, expectations of happiness and suffering we're imbuing that into objects external to ourselves. We are setting ourselves up. I mean, it's not even a setup. It's just not true. It's a completely mistaken foundation. It's sort of the fundamental confusion that we have. That somehow there's a nature of things. And in some things, that nature is happiness or pleasure. And in some things, it's the opposite of that. You know, it's like when Rinpoche encourages us to turn everything into the Dharma by reframing how we see it, you know, so that we can make any job meaningful by the way we think about it and the way we act while we're doing it. Because it's not whether the job or not is meaningful. That's not where meaning comes from. Meaning is an internal state. It's an attitude of mind. So if we understand what's truly meaningful to ourselves, this is why having that, you know, oh, I'm on my deathbed meditation, what will I care about? Will I care about the success at my job? Will I care about how I treated people? Will I care about, you know, whatever, my role in the community? You know, we want to find out, we want to observe what actually is meaningful to us and quit expecting external things to give it meaning. We have to do that. That's under our power. That's the good news. So we can have self-respect, confidence, no matter what, you know, place we hold in the world, because it comes from, how is my mind? How do I treat others? How do I think of others? Am I mindful of others? Am I doing harm? Am I taking care of myself so I don't do harm?
Venerable Tendron, you were talking about self-care, but I think in past session you talked about self-cherishing.
Yes.
Like, so they're two different things, right? So self-cherishing is like putting importance on ourself versus caring. Is that right?
Yeah, self-cherishing is when we put ourselves above others. When we think our needs are more important than others. And so we want to always be on the lookout for our self-interest in any situation. You know, because like often when we feel sort of some sort of discomfort, say there's a discussion about some decision that's going to be made. It can be as stupid as a movie, you know. Sorry, there's some judgment in there. But, you know, we can just be discussing with someone what movie to go see. And if we start to feel this little kind of tightness forming, we want to look and say, what's that about? Why do I think it's so important which movie I see? Oh, because I want to see this one. We want to look at our self-interest. Now, there's nothing wrong with having a movie you want to see. It's how we take that, and either do we choose to just say that and be okay if that's not the choice that's made? Or are we trying to manipulate things so that's the choice that's made? And that's the tightness. You know, you were trying to lead them to that decision and it's going wrong.
Or what about like if say, let's just say my sister needs someone babysit her son, but I feel like I need time to like de-stress or, you know, have me time. Is that?
Yeah, you have to really be careful with self-care. You know, we need self-care, no question about it, you know? So we just have to try to really kind of go underneath and go, okay, is it really that I need some time off tonight or today or this time? Or is it that I just really don't feel like it? You know, we just need to check up. It's not about the decision we make. It's about whether or not we're being honest with ourselves. We don't have to share this information. You know, we can, that's great. But, you know, what we want to do is just check, is my actual motivation here just that I want to do what I want to do? You know, we just have to know that if that's what we're choosing. Because it's a choice, you know. Because if we do something with this idea in my mind, you know, oh, I'm gonna babysit because, you know, my sister really needs this time for whatever, you know, and I really have more free time or whatever. You do all these things, but actually you don't mean it. And so then they're not very appreciative. And you think, I gave up my valuable free time so that you could have some. Then you start realizing you really weren't honest with yourself about why you were doing it. Because now it hinges on being appreciated. You know, I'm doing it to please you. And you're not getting that. So we have to really just check up. Because often we agree to do things that later on we resent the other person. But we've really put them in an impossible situation because we've given them all the power and they don't know it. We haven't been honest with ourselves.
Venerable Tendron?
Yes, Lamo?
Okay, back in I never heard it this way, in 1987, when the Dalai Lama was his first talk.
You have a really good memory, Lamo.
Yeah, I do. I see Nicole laughing. But back in 1987 in London, was his first time he taught on the four turnings of the Dharma. And he began in the beginning when he was talking about, you know, self and non-self and suffering. He says he found most Westerners, and he didn't say low self-esteem. He said what we have to work on was a healthy sense of self.
Yep.
Which at that time I remember going, it made it very easy to distinguish for a lot of people of self-cherishing and a healthy sense of self.
Yeah, and this is an important issue in the West because we think if you're not allowed to be self-cherishing, then you're not going to take care of yourself, and that's just wrong. It means being a doormat to others, all of that stuff. And that's not what the teachings are saying. The teachings are saying that our needs, our self-care is equally important. So when we're trying to decide, whose care should I be concerned about today, it's not that we discount ourselves all the time until we get to a point where we're truly bodhisattvas and our sense of self never comes up. There's nothing that is, that we need that is more important than the need of someone else. Now that's of an advanced mind. But to be able to do that, a bodhisattva needs self-confidence. They need a healthy sense of self. Oh, I'm capable of helping this person. I'm going to do it. So it's this really understanding that the way in which we take care of ourselves is that we inflate its importance over others. And we want to be very aware of that and try and understand it's actually not skillful because it's going beyond self-care to, this egocentric, I'm more important than everybody else. And that leads to all kinds of negative actions. So it isn't that the teachings are saying, you, out of all the sentient beings in the world, are the least important. That's not what it's saying. Sometimes our mind says that, but that's not what the teachings are saying. The teachings are trying to help us understand how our self-grasping is seeing ourselves as somehow independent of everybody else, independent. We have our own nature that, and this is very important. We have to guard it. That this drives a wedge between ourselves and others in a way that isn't how we actually exist. We're actually interconnected and interdependent. Yes, Lamo?
No, I didn't.
Okay, you're just not muted. I'm going to mute you just so I know. Whoops. If I muted you incorrectly, I apologize. But I can only tell if somebody wants to talk when they're unmuted. Margaret, you're unmuted.
Yes, hi, thank you. I was just thinking, the I in Buddhism, does that equate to the word ego? And
yeah.
It doesn't?
No, it's the false sense of I that is equated to the ego. There is an I. The I is a name we give to this body and mind. That's all it is, though. It's just this name. We imbue it with a much more inflated kind of, I, and we imbue it with qualities that don't exist. We imbue it with some sort of permanent nature. Oh, I am this. Well, when? In what moment are you this? We give ourselves, even though we know we've changed since birth, we still grasp on to some sort of quality of me that is separate from this ever-changing body and mind. There's something that is me.
Is that considered delusional thinking in Buddhism?
Yep. Okay. Because we don't exist that way. We only exist, we are dependent arisings. And one of the things we're dependent upon are our habits of mind. So the way we act is an effect of previous actions. And then when we meet certain conditions, we often act exactly the same way. Of course, it's not really exactly the same way. But we, respond in a similar way that we have in the past because we've been practicing it. But we're not stuck there because we're not permanent. Our minds are not permanent. Our bodies are not permanent. We can observe what's going on and change the mind. Go, I'm not following that habit. I'm going to develop this habit. So if we have a habit of expectations, therefore we have a habit of being crushed when those expectations aren't met, or thinking that we can't be happy unless our expectations are met. We are creating suffering for ourselves unnecessarily, because the reality is our contentment, our joy, our sense of meaning and purpose is our mental inner attitudes. We tend to imbue external things as giving those things meaning. And Buddhism just says it's not possible for things to exist that way. If they existed that way, we would all find the same people attractive. We would all find the same foods delicious. We'd all find the same, everything. Because those objects would be that way. We wouldn't have differing points of view. Does that make sense? I mean, what I'm saying, not that you have to believe it or not. Just, I'm just trying to convey my understanding of the teachings. You don't have to buy into it at any given timetable. But yes, this self-grasping, this ignorance of the I, is about how we hold the I to exist in a way it cannot possibly exist. And we really have to observe what's going on in our minds to recognize how we actually act as if the I is somehow got some sort of nature that is independent of everything else. And that's our me. And that's why looking back, trying to think about, okay, what were we thinking about last year, the year before, and the year before that? And then we go back into the bardo, and then we go back into our previous life and think, oh, we had all these other people in our lives. We had a different job. We had a different name. We had different loved ones. We had different friends. We had different enemies. We had different likes, dislikes. We had a different, all this stuff helps us understand that we are just not, there isn't this unchangeable core that is independent of everything else. It's all a dependent arising, dependent on conditions we meet. What was the word I was using?
Meek. You said meek. You were close though. We figured it out.
So we want to really understand that there are innumerable causes and conditions for any moment of existence. And our habits of mind are one of them. But we're not alone. It's not like, we all know this because we all know that if someone comes in a room stomping and screaming and, clearly irate, that can affect us. And we will respond in whatever way we feel that connection. We may respond with, oh dear, you're clearly upset. What's happened? So compassion might arise. Because that's our habit. Or if our habit is, I finally have these few minutes to myself, you know, with this lovely cup of coffee, and you come into the break room with your stuff. I don't want your stuff. Please go away. You might not say that out loud, but you will convey it, you know. So it's all dependent arisings. So we were reading this, not the nonviolent communication book, and one description in it is, you know, the author coming home one day after a hard day at work, and the kids were all loud and fighting, and he just went, I can't handle this. I've had a terrible day at work. I'm going to go to my room, you know, just avoid the whole thing, because sometimes that's what happens. But if we blame external events, you know, as opposed to understanding we are part of it all, we are interdependent. It doesn't mean our choices are limited. It just means, you know, the more informed we are about why we make choices, what's underlying our habits arising, the, you know, better chance we have to make a choice that goes in the direction we actually want to go, not our habit energy wants to go. So if we're learning that just yelling back at someone, it doesn't really lead to happiness in our family, you know, if that's the instinct that arises because of our efforts and our observation, our awareness, we will pause and try to refrain from that action, even though our habit energy is encouraging it on. But our wisdom, which is ours too, arises and helps counter that impulse. And it's only impulsive because it's a habit. It's not because we are that way, unchangeable. I know that this topic isn't incredibly different than what, but training the mind, it's sort of like it almost doesn't matter what we're trying to train the mind out of or into, you know, the technique is the same. We have to be observant about where we are. We have to try to then understand, what is that habit telling us about what we believe? Do we really believe that our contentment or our, you know, our state of mind is dependent on getting what we want or not getting what we don't want? You know, we want to really look, what is it telling us about our belief? Maybe it's telling us, how dare you disturb my moment of peace? Might tell us, oh, I think I'm more important than they are. I'd be surprised if that arises, you know. This is because we think there's a self that we have to, that, you know, if we don't take care of, there's no chance for happiness. Yes, we have to take care of ourselves. But our chance for happiness is actually also self-care. It's within us. It's not about what's happening out here. We can develop a mind that's happy, content, peaceful, loving, compassionate in every moment, no matter what's happening out here.
Venerable Tendron?
Yes, Lama.
Thank you. Do you mind if I add something?
Well, we don't really have a lot of time. So is it short?
It's pretty short.
Well, it has to be really short because we have to do our dedication. So go for it and just keep it short.
So let's go to dedication.
Oh, you've changed your mind?
Well,
Sorry
no,
about that. Okay.
No, Geshe-la used to say to me, okay, in 3 words. I just know myself. So let's go to dedication.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll hold that thought.
Yes.
So, okay. So now we spent, you know, for some of us, it's been close to 2 hours with our meditation, you know, but we spent some time trying to really look at what does desire really mean? What does contentment really mean? How do we experience these things? And this is going to help us uncover what mistaken attitudes of mind we have, that we hold, where our wisdom is, so we can use that, you know, and then we can choose whether certain habits of mind we have are skillful or not, if they're actually leading us in a direction we want to go, or if they're just, you know, continuing this reactivity to thinking that, you know, and suffering. If it's just, you know, leading us down this path of wrong view. And we have to check ourselves out because we have wisdom. And so we're just cultivating, we're taking some information from the Buddha and saying, you want to check it up with this piece of information to develop your wisdom even further. It's not like you're starting from scratch. You know, we all do things where we kind of go, you know, that was probably not very skillful. I'm probably going to regret this later. You know, we have some wisdom. We're just trying to be more precise in recognizing all the different components that go into our suffering, our peace of mind, so that we can create more of those conditions for contentment. And the big thing with that is our mind. You know, we have our society, you know, our habit energy, you know, has this, you know, being pulled around thinking that it really is about buying the right, this, that, the other, getting this, that, the other, you know, having the perfect partner, having, you know, I mean, none of us really buy all that, but a part of us does. You know, that part is that desire. Ooh, that looks good. I want some. So anyway, so this is, you know, the Buddha would say this is really good effort to try to look at these things, because if we want to reduce suffering, this is where the cause is in our mind. And fortunately, the mind is impermanent, it is changeable. You know, we can change our habits of mind. So, yay. No. So if there have been any, you know, so the Buddha would say we've placed all sorts of positive potentials on our mind stream that will ripen in some positive way in the future. And we don't want to hoard it. We don't want to keep it all to ourselves. We want to, you know, throw it into all the positive actions that have ever, you know, all the positive potentials to the, you know, great, you know, just kind of imagine it being just, you know, a shared bank account with everyone, with all living beings, in order to, you know, ripen as whatever anyone needs until there are no suffering sentient beings at all. And we've all figured it out. And so we're going to read the dedication prayers. If I can find them. So this is one of Rinpoche's, and then we'll recite Shantideva. To do all the past, present, and future merits collected by me, all the 3-time merits, past, present, and future, collected by numberless sentient beings and numberless Buddhas, may those who are sick, may they never ever be reborn in the lower realms, and may they immediately recover from their sickness. Be able to generate bodhicitta in this very lifetime, because that leads to happiness. All their wishes to succeed in accordance with the Holy Dharma. For all those who have the virus and died from the virus, may they never ever be reborn in the lower realms, and those in the lower realms now immediately get liberated and be born in a pure land. May all beings everywhere plagued by sufferings of body and mind obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness, and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. So thank you very much. Everybody unmute and say goodbye to everybody else. And you know.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Venerable
Have a nice
Tendron.
day.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
Venerable Tendron. Bye,
Bye,
everyone.
Margaret.
Everyone.
Bye.
Bye, Francesca. Can't wait to see you
Bye.
guys. Everybody, it'd be so nice. It's not going to
Yes.
happen for a while.
Ah,
Karma
no.
on Thursday.
What?
Oh yes, karma begins on Thursday. Discovering Buddhism.
Thank
Oh,
you.
I thought
Miss you too. Bye-bye.
Bye. Have a meaningful Sunday.
Meaningful survey. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Bye,
Thank you.
Lamo.
Hi, Blooming Flower.
See you later.
Bye, Hernan.
Her new name, Blooming Flower. Nicole's.
Glad to see you've got a working computer, Brian.
Yes, Brian, nice to see you.
Oops, you're muted. All right.
How do I turn this off? I didn't even know how
You
to.
say leave. So yes, Brian, I missed what you were saying.
It's not worked. My mic wouldn't go on or off. That was my problem. But now you were able to unmute me, so that
Wow, Brian, you're blind. Your eyes are like.
Oh yes, that's because he has a virtual background that's not strong enough.
not strong enough. It's not working.
And so he's got the glow of space